Hi, this is Edward Funk and podcast 60, uh, titled Studio Head Darryl Zanuck's Word Meant Nothing. Okay, this is coming from the copyright material of Behind the Door, the Real Story of Loretta Young. With all the focus on Loretta Young's relationship with Spencer Tracy in the last two podcasts, we haven't discussed what's been going on in Loretta's career. That much was happening, and Loretta's career was always the most important thing in her life. Warner Brothers offered to renew Loretta's contract, but without the $100 a week raise she expected. She remembered Dave Thompson, the former manager at First National Studios, saying, "Loretta, if you ever need an agent, call me." She did, but even with his intervention, Warner Brothers balked. At that same time, former writer turned producer Darryl Zanuck was forming a new studio, 20th Century. Note, it would be a few years before that studio acquired Fox Studios and then became 20th Century Fox. Back to Darryl Zanuck. He would be head of production, and through her agent, Zanuck offered Loretta a 7-year contract starting at $1,731 a week. That was a lot of money. The Depression's still going on. Okay, Loretta accepted. She was not yet 21, so Gladys was required to sign the new contract. Gladys is Loretta's mother. After returning home, she said, "Dear, I don't know how you can take it. Darryl Zanuck doesn't even know enough to stand up when a lady enters the room. By the time this 7-year period rolls around, you'll be old enough to sign your own contract, and I'll never have to go near a studio again." But it wasn't really merely a matter of manners. Loretta summarized her mother's distrust of Zanuck. Mama saw his display and said, hold on a second, his bad manners as his way of manipulating the situation, his way of showing that he was in charge and how little you mattered to him. Nor had Loretta forgotten her distaste towards Zanuck, stemming from his negative comments about Grant Withers when she and Grant were married, as well as his braggadocio in the executive dining room at Warner Brothers. But she thought, you don't have to like a man to work for him, as long as you get the parts you want. Loretta had two stipulations when she signed with Zanuck. She wanted an annual paid vacation, and she did not want to work with the older English actor George Arliss. She knew she'd ended up paying Arliss's daughter yet another ingenue, bland role. Zanuck complied but said, "But I can't put it into your contract, because then everyone else would demand a vacation and special considerations." His duplicity was soon evident. Loretta's first picture for 20th Century was The House of Rothschild, starring George Arliss. She was cast as his daughter. Following the wrap of The House of Rothschild, Loretta and Gladys set sail for Hawaii for the first of her paid vacations. Loretta recalled, "We were only there a few days when I got a telegram from Zanuck's office demanding that I return immediately. It took a few days because we had to go by ship, but the script was waiting for me when I got home. I read this thing called Born to be Bad. I made an appointment to D. Zanuck, and I walked into his office and said, 'Darryl, I can't play this thing.' He said, 'Well, you're going to play it. Jean Harlow was set to do it, but she's no longer available. You're an actress, and you're going to play it.' I said, 'But this says she walks into the room, and she's so sexy, the men drop over dead. If I have any appeal, it's not that. And I know it. I've done a picture with Jean, and I know what that's all about.' Zanuck wouldn't listen. So there was one scene in Born to be Bad where my character is on the telephone. She's wearing a pair of step-ins and a bra, and my figure wasn't anything to speak of. We made the test, and they said, 'Well, can't you make them skimpier?' I said, sure, but it won't make me sexier. I weighed 110 pounds dripping wet. I watched this film the last few years, and I noticed in that scene, I come out of these brief little things, and I had a bathrobe over my shoulder, still trying to hide. I don't know if it was modesty as much as just being ashamed of my shape. Cary Grant played the male lead. Loretta remembered. Cary had such a nice tan that he didn't wear any makeup. He told me that after a shower, he spent 4 minutes under his sunlamp. He had a little tiny sunlamp on the set, so in case he missed it in the morning, he got some time during the day. Loretta's next picture was Caravan for Fox. Caravan was a musical set in the 19th century Hungary and introduced French heartthrob Charles Boyer to the American screen. Loretta loathed Caravan. She said, "It's the only preview of one of my own pictures that I walked out of." Darryl Zanuck called me into his office the next day and said, "You walked out of a preview last night? Don't you ever do that again." I said, "I'm sorry, but I just couldn't stand it. The picture was just awful." Now, the Loretta's next two films were with Ronald Colman. Bulldog Drummond Strikes Back was a mystery, followed by a historic epic, Clive of India. Loretta recalled, Clive of India was a big picture, lots of sets, lots of costumes. I remember one scene when Ronnie was coming home from India, and in a burst of enthusiasm was supposed to sweep his wife up in his arms and carry her up the staircase. Now, I was wearing a hoop skirt that was 8 feet across. Now, hoop skirts were 4 feet across normally, but I wanted mine 8 feet because the bigger the skirt looked, the smaller your waist looked. But also, the bigger the loop, the heavier. At rehearsal, Ronnie started to pick me up, and I said, "Oh, Ronnie, not at rehearsal." He said, "No, it's fine. You're not heavy." With that, he gathered me up and sailed up the staircase. When we reached the top, he laughed a little and put me down to catch his breath. By the time we finally got the take, I thought the poor man was going to have a heart attack. Not only had Loretta's relationship with Spencer Tracy ended, her mom and her mom's second husband, George Belzer, separated. Looking back, Loretta theorized, I don't think it was a too happy of a marriage for either of them. I think Mama was probably too strong for him, too. I know she was too strong for my father. Gladys was busy investing Loretta's money and perfecting her decorating skills. She started buying homes in the flat section of Beverly Hills, decorating them, and then renting them out furnished. Loretta recalled she charged $200 or $300 rent, just enough to pay everything, including the taxes and whatever else came along. The houses were paid for themselves. Mama was very talented in many ways. Note, you may be noticed that in these podcasts I have a lot to say about Loretta's mother. There's a good reason for it. Her mother was the most important person in Loretta's life, all the way through Loretta's life. Back to Loretta's career. Loretta provided a source of distraction from the pain of breaking off with Spencer Tracy. Again, she was loaned out to Fox, this time playing a student nurse in the White Parade. It was about a nurse's training school in the Midwest. Loretta's sister Pollyann also played one of the students. Jesse Lansky asked Loretta to come to his office while White Parade was in production. She recalled he was going to produce a picture at Fox for when Spencer was already set, and he wanted me to play opposite. But before he asked Darryl for the loan out, he was asking me. I told him that we'd just start the whole thing all over again, and it had taken so much for both of us to break it off. I'll always appreciate his sensitivity of not putting me in a spot of having to refuse a picture. However, as I turn the page, At this point, Loretta felt she could barely manage the drama in her young life as she recovered from her love affair with Spencer Tracy. Probably just as well, she didn't know about the chaos that would soon engulf her. This time, his name was Clark Gable. So, see you podcast 61 as we dive into that story. Thank you.